The Dreamcast really was, in my opinion, the first console to bring the arcade experience home. So it's no surprise that the most popular genre in the arcade, the fighting game, had got an incredible amount of fantastic games converted to the Dreamcast. Today, we're going to look at the top 25, that's right, 25 Dreamcast fighting games. This is Will from the Game Lounge. Let's take a look. Starting us off at number 25, Vampire Chronicle was a conversion of the CPS2 Capcom arcade board, and this version had Night Warriors, Vampire Savior 2, and Vampire Hunter 2 control styles. It really was a compilation of all the games released around that time, and unfortunately, the matching service was not available outside of Japan, but this is a fantastic version to pick up if you can find this one in the wild. Back in 2020, a user by the name of Megavolt85 was able to convert Atomiswave arcade games to the SEGA Dreamcast, and this meant that you got, with that, a few quality fighters. And at number 24, we have Samurai Shodown 6. The sixth iteration in the series, originally on the Neo Geo platform. This is definitely, if you love hack and slash fighters, this is one that you should definitely play. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is actually a game I only picked up in the last couple of years. It's a 2D fighting game based on the manga series and was originally produced by Capcom for their CPS3 arcade board. The Dreamcast version is absolutely arcade perfect and something a little bit different. The color palette and everything is slightly different to things that you see. So certainly if you love 2D fighters, you should check this one out. Super Street Fighter 2X on the Dreamcast is, in my opinion, the definitive version of the game. Now, when it came to release, it was well over half a decade old, so of course this is more than arcade perfect, and I think this was the best home console version that you could play. The game still holds up. It's not hard to see why it was such a cultural phenomenon in the 90s, because it still plays great. If you have a Dreamcast lying around, sadly this one was only released in Japan, so fairly difficult to import, but definitely if you can pick this one up, take a look. Just missing out on the top 20, this is Tech Romancer, a game that I didn't pick up during the Dreamcast's original retail run. Now, I guess the best way to describe this, think Virtua On, but from a more traditional fighting perspective. This is huge mechs, weapons, running around the city, and the story mode in this one is actually surprisingly deep. So if you want a fighting game with a bit of depth, and if you like mechs, Tech Romancer might be the one for you at 21. Kicking off the top 20 then, and Fist of the North Star was originally a 2005 Atomiswave game that again was part of the Atomiswave conversion back in 2020. And the first thing that really hits me about this game is just how striking and stunning the visuals are. It's like you're playing an anime movie. It really does look absolutely stunning. The fighting is really fluid, so if you haven't checked this one out yet, or you missed the PS2 version, definitely have a look at Fist of the North Star. One of the neglected fighting genres on the Dreamcast was wrestling games, especially when you compare it to the SmackDown series and what was available on the PS2. And of course the N64 and PlayStation. But the Dreamcast did get WWF Royal Rumble, which was a really, great wrestling game, played just as well as any other, but sadly was lacking in modes and was a little bit of a one-trick pony. Still, it's a lot of fun. The Royal Rumble mode is completely bonkers. So if you like wrestling on your Dreamcast, give WWF Royal Rumble a go. At number 18 is the last, and in my opinion, the best of the Atomiswave conversions, and that is Rumblefish 2. Now, the thing that strikes me about this game when I played it was the number of frames of animation per character, even in an idle state, the way that they move, the 2D animations looks really, really good. When you add that to the really, really striking 3D backgrounds, it really is a very distinctive, jaw-dropping game. Add on that the fact that it's great to play, and this really is a game that if you have missed it, you should definitely take a look. Number 18, Rumblefish 2. At number 17 is Fighting Vipers 2. Now this is a strange one. This was a conversion of the Sega Model 3 arcade, and they never really went particularly well. And this is not a bad game. In fact, it's a lot of fun. It only released in Europe. But I think the problem with this is it doesn't really feel any different to playing the Saturn game, which isn't bad as a one-off game, but there are a few things that just are wrong to me with this one. The costume design, they went with this crazy looking, and it sort of lost a lot of the distinction that the original Fighting Vipers on the Saturn had. That being said, it's still a fun game. This conversion isn't even that great. The backgrounds in particular compared to the Model 3 version are nowhere near as good. But if you want just a decent brawler, I still had a lot of fun playing this one today, and that's why it's at number 17. Number 16 is Mortal Kombat Gold, and I guess think of this as Mortal Kombat 4 Definitive Edition. I actually originally played the Nintendo 64 version. Now they decided to go with a sort of 2D perspective but with 3D visuals, which I think was the right thing to do rather than going full 3D fighter. It would have lost what's Mortal Kombat. But a lot of people weren't fans of this. I think Mortal Kombat fatigue was setting in. For me, I really had a good time with this one. I still love the original Mortal Kombat games, and although this was a little bit tired, I really enjoyed this, and to have a better resolution version of the Nintendo game was a lot of fun. So if you want some classic MK nostalgia, check out Mortal Kombat Gold. So the King of Fighters 99 or King of Fighters Evolution and the King of Fighters Dream Match, there's a lot of debate as to which one is the best. There's not much in it. I've gone with King of Fighters Evolution at number 15. The game was a conversion of the Neo Geo game. However, for the Dreamcast version, they added 3D backgrounds, something not everybody liked. Personally, for me, I think that they look great. So King of Fighters, possibly the best version of King of Fighters, is at number 15. Number 14 is, in my opinion, the very underrated Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now, this has a special place in my heart. I remember playing this a lot with friends when this released, and the countering and grappling on the floor, we'd spend hours just countering each other's hits, and the adrenaline of this game was phenomenal. I had a lot of fun playing this one again, and yeah, although there were later versions, I still think the original is the best. UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship is at number 14. When it comes to 2D blade fighting games, weapon-based games, you can't really go much further than Last Blade 2. It's the animation, the art design, the fluidity of how this game works is really fantastic. And even though the game was a couple of years old by the time it released on the Dreamcast, I'm certainly very glad that this one was ported. It holds up really well. I still think it has a great charm. Last Blade 2 is at number 13. At number 12 is another game that I picked up on launch day for the Dreamcast in Europe. Now, I remember going to my local town and seeing a demo in Toys R Us of Sonic Adventure, and it blew me away. And then I went to the next store, a department store, and they had a 2-player demo of this, and people were just crowded around it. People just wanted to play. It really did generate excitement. And I think the characters, the fun boxing element was just really good. And it's still fun to play. When I was playing this one, it was great getting involved, and I really, really enjoyed it. Garou Mark of the Wolves, or Fatal Fury Mark of the Wolves, is a game that I actually didn't pick up until it was given away free on Xbox Live Gold a few years back. And I'm amazed that I missed this game for so long. In my opinion, this is the best Neo Geo fighting game. The animations and the artwork is simply stunning. The fluidity of the moves is great. The backgrounds and the way that they're interactive and that they move, again, looks stunning. This is, to me, the definitive Neo Geo fighter, and the fact that there was a version on the Dreamcast, if you have a Dreamcast and can get this, you definitely should check it out because it's arcade perfect. So into the top 10, and when I was making this list, I spoke to a friend and told them about Street Fighter 3, and their honest response was, there was a Street Fighter 3? And I think that basically says it all. Capcom, I think, was incredibly brave with this game. They went with a whole new roster. Originally, they weren't going to have Ken and Ryo, but they decided to keep them in. And in fact, Chun-Li, who you can see I'm playing with now, didn't come in until the Third Strike version. Now, the game is... it's pretty hard to get into. It's extremely deep as a fighter. I struggled to get back into this one when I was playing it. But actually, you know, in terms of 2D visuals, it looked absolutely stunning. And if you're willing to put the time in, this is a very, very rewarding fighting game. So Street Fighter 3 is at number 10. Without question, the two biggest players in the 90s were Capcom and SNK in 2D fighting games. So when they teamed up to make two projects, Capcom versus SNK and SNK versus Capcom, I think everybody knew it was going to be special. Now, this game takes the best of SNK and basically the Street Fighter Alpha character roster and combines them into a really fluid, fantastic fighting game. It's, again, visually striking. At this time, they really mastered 2D and backgrounds and making it look stunning. Capcom vs SNK is a fantastic game everyone should try at number 9. Guilty Gear X was a game that sadly on the Dreamcast was only released in Japan, and that's a huge shame. This game was developed by Arc Software, who actually, decided to take on Capcom and SNK and the like in the 2D fighting space. And I think it's fair to say they came up with a absolutely fantastic game. You can see here from the visuals, they really, really do look like movie-esque quality. And this game was also released on the PS2 as well. So if you need to pick that version up, I recommend everybody should, because this really, really is pure poetry to watch. So number 8, Guilty Gear X. At number 7 is Project Justice, which is a sequel to the PlayStation game Rival Schools. Now, this game is basically what I expected Fighting Vipers 2 from Sega to be. It doesn't look great, it certainly doesn't compare to other 3D fighters on the system, but Capcom have used all of the sort of fast, fluid 2D play and blended that into a really, really fun to play 3D fighter, which I, had an absolute blast when I played this one. It's fast, it's fluid, the combos are great, it works really, really well. So Project Justice is at number 7. Incredibly, Virtua Fighter 3 from Sega is Sega's highest entry on this list at number 6. Now, Virtua Fighter 3 in the arcades blew me away. It looked incredible. And the Dreamcast version, as with all Model 3 conversions, wasn't great. It certainly didn't look as good. The lighting and depth of color just wasn't there. It just wasn't quite as good. But the one thing that does stay intact is the excellent gameplay, and that is here in full. This conversion was handled by Genki. They didn't have long, allegedly only had 6 months to complete, but I think that this is still so much fun to play, and actually playing it now, I think I gave it a far harder time back in the day, fresh out of the arcades, because it's still a lot of fun to play. So number 6 is Virtua Fighter 3 Team Battle. Into the top 5, and Street Fighter Alpha 3 to me is arguably the greatest Street Fighter game of all time, along with the SNES version of Street Fighter 2. The game has, you know, a huge roster, deep tweaked fighting mechanics. The visuals are all excellent. Everything about this is just polished. The fact that this is only number 5, I think, shows the depth of this list. Some people argue the Saturn version is superior. I've played both. I don't really see a difference. Street Fighter Alpha 3 is a phenomenal game at number 5. At number 4 is Power Stone 2, a game I personally preferred to the original. Now, the game is absolutely bonkers. This is, you know, way before Smash Brothers on the GameCube found its audience. It's just completely, utterly insane, high energy, high octane action for, as you can see, up to 4 players this time. I think purists perhaps prefer the first game, but for me the 4-player mode is some of the most fun you can have. Even now, playing this game is absolutely superb. So if somehow you missed it, Power Stone 2 is a must play in my opinion. I think it's a tragedy that this was the last game in the series. The games were remade for the PSP, but we've not seen another entry, which I think is very sad indeed. Number 4, Power Stone 2. So I deliberately paused there for a second because this music has to be, without question, the most iconic character select music ever. It's legendary and really gets you in the mood of this game. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is a game that's, you know, still played competitively to this day. Everything about it, from the music through to the animations, the fluid fighting that you have and fluid combo system, and of course the absolutely excellent background visuals. Everything about it is just polished perfection. I picked this one up back in the day. It still is a game that I go back to every now and then. It's just so much fun, and crazy that this is only number 3 on the list. If you've missed this one, pick it up. It's fantastic. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is at number 3. So by this stage, you've probably realised that there's not much in it, literally a hair's breadth between 3, 2 and 1. And at number 2, I've gone with Dead or Alive 2. Now this is a game I actually wasn't originally going to purchase. I went in with some games to trade to buy Virtua Tennis. It wasn't out yet, so I got this instead, thinking I'd trade it back in a week later. Funnily enough, I never did, and I still have that original copy. The game looks fantastic. For me, it's some of the best visuals on the Dreamcast. I loved the combos and the fighting and the fact that you could smash people through walls and you have variable terrain, etc. I also absolutely loved the parry system, the counter system, which I thought was excellent. The game, if you were playing this with friends, you could be back in and on the attack in seconds. To me, this is the best Dead or Alive game that there is. It's really superb. You should definitely check it out. Dead or Alive 2 is at number 2. So at the beginning of the video, I mentioned the Dreamcast enabled arcade perfect conversions. That is, of course, unless you're Soul Calibur, which was the sequel to the PlayStation game and actually upped the ante in adding so much versus the arcade version. It looked completely different. It was on another stratosphere. The story mode here, which sadly was not present in the Xbox Live Arcade version, is just so deep. One of the deepest story modes in fighting game history. The game has this habit of, it doesn't matter if you're a novice or an expert, it still looks so fluid when you play this game. The animations for a 3D fighter were just off the scale. Everything about this is pure perfection, and I still think this is the definitive version of this game to play today. I hope you guys enjoyed the list. It was a long one. I had a blast making it. As always, like and subscribe. I love doing this. I love getting your feedback. So comment, do you think I'm wrong? As always, have a great day.